Hey everybody, Match Director AMAX here, and the IPSC World Shoot Shotgun selection policy was posted here today, and naturally lots of questions are floating in, and anything that's asked as a question that I think a lot of people are going to have, I think I'm just going to make some videos about all that and post it publicly where everybody can get at it and see it if they don't have access to me directly. If you do have access to me directly, or I'm not that hard to find, you're more than welcome to ask me. But stuff that I think is going to get asked over and over again, I'm just going to put out in videos to save my breath and also just make it more accessible. So 4 questions right off the top here that people were asking about, and I just wanted to get out in the open. Also, understand this. I am conveying the organization's stance on this stuff, or the way that it has been voted on and determined to be. Do not confuse that with my personal opinion. All right. I had my opportunity to inject my opinion in there, and a lot of that was very influential, to be sure. But what I'm saying right now, this is the direction that is being dictated. It's not necessarily my personal opinion. All right. So I'm conveying the position that the org has taken on some of this stuff. All right. Very important. So the first one, the 60% rule. All right. So that is in the selection of the teams. Well, selections of teams is going to be your aggregate best 3 of the 6 eligible events. The 6 eligible events are the Minnesota Shotgun Championship from last fall. All right. The Dissident match coming up in March. The Tar Heel match coming up in May. The Mill Creek event coming up in June. The Minnesota event, the Jeff Kirkwald in August, and the Heartland event in September. Those are the events, and it is a closed, fixed series at this point. Those are the events. Of those events, they're going to take your best 3 scores, and that will be your selection process for getting on a team. You got to have 3 eligible scores, though. And so other members of the committee felt it important that there be a floor for how you perform. Remember, we're sending teams to be competitive on the world stage, and the priority of the org, think of this as scarce resources allocated amongst unlimited wants. All right. So we have scarce resources of how many slots we are allotted based on our membership size per IPSC. So to use the Rifle World Shoot as an example, the first allocation of slots that we got for Rifle World Shoot was 24. All right. So based on having 24 slots to this match, what could we do with those to field the most teams that stand the best chance of being competitive? All right. And so something similar will happen here. Now, there are other allocations of slots when other countries decide how many of their slots they want. Usually all of the countries don't use all of their slots. There's another allocation. I think there ended up being, for Rifle World Shoot, I think it ended up being we could have bought as many as we wanted. Basically, they bought one for everyone that wanted to go. Everyone who wants to go is not necessarily on a team. They're on a delegate slot at that point. Those are 2 different things. But the priority of the org for the selection process is to field the highest number of competitive teams. And that's not necessarily categories or divisions where there are just 4 eligible individuals that want to go. The org wants to make sure they are competitive. The idea is to win. Again, not my opinion. That's just the direction that I'm conveying to you. So the 60% rule. All right. So that's saying that if you're going to have a score, my understanding is if if you're going to have a score count, you have to score above 60% in the match. Essentially, that is because we don't have a classification system in the long gun sports. All right, there are no A, B, C, M, G, M classifications in USPSA for long guns at the moment. The way they're determining that is based on percentage of finish. So they want you to at least be able to finish within 60% of the overall leader in your division to be considered viable talent to represent in a national or a world championship. So does that mean if, for example, again, not picking on ladies, using it as an example, if a lady shoots, does she have to shoot 60% of John Waddell or Varick Bizey, Scott Green to be eligible? My understanding is the answer is yes. You have to be able to shoot at least 60% of those guys for your score to count. People on the PCC side, all right, there are people who had 58%, 59 point whatever percent. They were deemed to not have qualifying scores to qualify them for World Shoot. Now, when it comes to, are we going to, if we have extra slots, are we going to fill a team, this, that, the other thing? That gets into the discretionary part, and the committee can decide that type of stuff. But if you as a competitor are squaring your attempt at making the team, in your head, you need to have it that you have to score 60% for your score to be valid to use. All right, so yes, that is based off of other overalls in that. I think that would be other overalls participating in the IPSC selection process. All right. The way that we determined to do all this, the other challenge it's simple and it's confusing, but it was dictated that to do these, you have to use an established rule book, an entirety of an established rule book. There's the USPSA multi-gun rules. There are the IPSC rules. All right. You have to pick one or the other. USPSA didn't really care which we picked, but you have to pick one or the other and use it as written. You can't ad-lib off a book. So what I've advocated for is that we use multi-gun, IPSC, USPSA multi-gun rules as the basis for the match, and we have an IPSC category in there so that we can pick who's going to go for the IPSC team and who's going to play by those rules. Why is that? People who care about World Shoot and are trying to get to World Shoot, they want to be judged on IPSC equipment and IPSC competitive divisions. However, we also had to convince event promoters that these were viable events to put on. And in the already small action shooting space, we're an even smaller segment of that's interested in shotgun, and an even smaller segment of that is what's interested in IPSC. That is not enough participants to make a viable match. So in an attempt to make these viable events, we use the multi-gun rules so that they have broad appeal to commonly available equipment in the U.S. So there you will see USPSA multi-gun divisions: open, modified, tack, and heavy irons. All right, because that's where manual fits in. There's a process for creating a division or changing a division. That pipeline is very long, and it's too late. All right, so we're using those divisions. All right. All the applicable equipment fits in those divisions. However, common usage equipment in the U.S. isn't necessarily IPSC legal. So like the question was asked about modified division. Are we going off of the 52-inch length or the 152-inch length or 151.96? So what we're doing is we're doing IPSC as a category. So if you in modified, you select your in modified division. You also, under categories where you would select lady, law enforcement, junior, whatever, you'd select the IPSC category. Some match directors understand this better than others. This will get cleaned up as we go along. But If you opt into the IPSC category, then you are accountable to IPSC equipment rules. You can make a category to represent anything, all right? You can make a category for everybody wearing a purple shirt. It's not as official as a division is. A division, this, again, USPSA, words mean things. You say division, divisions are defined. All right, categories can be used to represent whatever you want. And they have some example categories that need to be represented, but you can make as many categories as you want. So if you want to have a purple shirt category, or if you want to have a Solomon shoe category, or if you want to have a cowboy hat category, like, you can have whatever you want. We're using that mechanism to separate out people who are interested in IPSC. And those people are all agreeing to participate under IPSC rules as kind of a side match, if you have to think of it as anything. And so that's how that's done. So if you elect to shoot modified, you just have to make modified rules. If you want to be IPSC, if you're trying to go for the world shoot team, then you have to qualify with IPSC standards. Now, the reason we made that rule is because most of the tubes in common usage, most of the 12-round tubes in common usage in the U.S., they're too long for IPSC modified. All right, so instead of making everybody buy a new magazine tube for multi-gun nationals, we just kind of made all those legal. But we're talking about IPSC now. If you're trying to go for IPSC, you're trying to go for the world shoot team, you need to have a tube of the legal length, and I suggest you check yours. So yes, if you're electing to participate, go for world shoot selection, you need to have IPSC legal equipment, and they will inspect it. All right. Same thing in open division. Does that mean you have to shoot 10-round mags? Yes. If you're trying to try out for the world shoot team, you need to shoot 10-round mags. Does that mean potentially you could be going up against somebody else in the match who can use big sticks because they don't care about going to IPSC or going to the world shoot? Also, yes. Would you have a disadvantage then? Yeah. But that's the point. All right, it's supposed to be hard. We are not currently the best at this. There are other countries that do a lot more of this than we do. So if anything, good. It's supposed to be hard. All right. In that same breath, I don't know anybody that's good enough to win any of these divisions. That's going to win because they didn't use IPSC legal equipment and beat the people who are trying out for world shoot. And if they are, just think of them as a rabbit to chase, if nothing else. But especially in open division, I think all the people who are good enough to try and get on the team are going to be opting in to try and get on the team. And if they're fit into that other category, then they're electing to poke the bear, which I'm kind of down for. Yes, there's going to be that mix in there, but that is the least bad option that we could come up with for appeasing all the powers that be to make this a reality. Again, remember, we're kind of creating something from nothing. All right, there has never been qualifier matches to select a shotgun world shoot team ever. All right, so these are the events, these are the promoters, these are the clubs that were willing to do it from nothing. It will only get better from here. Ultimately, would we like to spread it out more evenly across the U.S.? Yes, absolutely. Do we anticipate there being more events or a more traditional process? Do I think this process is going to get refined? That's what I'm trying to say. Do I think this process is going to get refined? Absolutely. But this is the best we could get done and get approved in time for it to be ready to go in the 2025 shooting season. So that's the reason it exists this way. Again, do not confuse this as my personal opinion. This is as the person who is a front row seat to how this all came about and was decided. This is my best interpretation of the direction forward that it's going, so that you can understand it. This is not my opinion. But as we look at who we're fielding, again, the objective is to field competitive teams. All right. So just because there are a number of individuals that want to go doesn't mean that team is going to go forward. Probably going to be an open overall team. All right. Probably going to be a modified team. I would say pretty much for sure. It's kind of questionable who's all going out for the standard team, although ultimately I think we'll have an overall standard team as well. I could say, pretty reasonable to think that we'll have seniors that want to shoot open. All right, open senior team. I would say there's probably enough people that want to do that will meet the criteria. But where it differs is that, like certain categories, they're not a given. I wouldn't say it's a given that we're sending a junior team. All right, the mentality is different in the U.S. The mentality is, well, we want to encourage youth to be in the sport. I don't know anybody that would disagree with that. But this is a world shoot team, all right? So we want to send teams that are competitive in their division. Typically in IPSC, from what I understand, junior teams, there aren't very many juniors that can bring it at that level, all right? And so it's not uncommon for junior teams to not be fielded. And this is my understanding. Same thing with ladies, same thing with seniors, same thing with super seniors. Depends on who we actually have and how good they shoot. It's not a charity though. All right. We're not just sending a category because we want to encourage people in that category to participate. It's more of a causal relationship. It's that we had enough of these types of individuals who are very competitive, and they were made a compelling case in their scores as to why we should have a team in that division or category. I hope I articulated that properly. But that is my best understanding, my best interpretation of the direction forward and answer to some questions that I was getting. If there are any more, please send them to me. And like I said, if it's a good one, I'll probably just make a video on it so that everyone can see it and it can be shared around and I don't have to retype the same text message 1,000,007 times. So if there are more questions, please send them my way. And if not, we are within 30 days of the first event. I'm excited. I hope you're excited. It's going to be a fun process, and we'll see you all on the range.